It's only a matter of time before Super Smash Bros. Comes to Nintendo Switch, probably in the form of Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo Switch. And at this point, I'm fully expecting a deluxe version that combines the best of Super Smash Bros. For the 3DS and Wii U. While layering on enough new content to make it feel at least somewhat new at the same time. But what form could that additional content take? Well, that's what brings us here today, because I have some ideas. Specifically, 10 ideas for what exactly I want to see in Super Smash Bros. On Nintendo Switch.
I'm here for a little, divine intervention.
So let's get to it. Playing Super Smash Bros. Without a GameCube controller just feels wrong. Even Nintendo knows this, which is why they not only released the GameCube adapter just for Smash Bros. On the Wii U, but even manufactured brand new Smash Bros. Controllers just for it. And luckily, the Nintendo Switch just recently added GameCube adapter support, so it already works. Which means it better be in Smash Bros. Switch too. So every new game in the series has smashed the character count of the previous game. And I don't think Smash Bros. Switch will be an exception, even if I don't expect it to be by quite as much as before. After all, Smash Bros. 3DS and Wii U already weighed in with an unprecedented 51 characters at launch, and ended up at 58 after all the DLC. And since I fully expect the entire roster to return, with the possible exception of some third-party characters, that means that Super Smash Bros. Switch will almost definitely have the biggest roster ever. Because even if it does end up largely being a port to Super Smash Bros. Wii U, there is no way in hell they won't take the opportunity to add in a few new characters. After all, characters are what builds hype. Hell, even Mario Kart 8 Deluxe added in a few more, like the Inkling. And speaking of which, I want the Inkling to join the roster, complete with boy and girl versions along with a variety of hairstyles and clothing options, just like the Villager. Imagine a character in Smash Bros. That can lay down ink, then swim through it to pop up elsewhere. A little bit like Glacius in Killer Instinct, even if that ink would have to be a little bit less permanent than in the main series. I'm already envisioning entire movesets involving paint buckets and umbrellas as shields. And even though ARMS didn't quite light the world on fire like Splatoon did, when has that ever stopped a character from appearing in Smash Bros. Before? And I think almost any of the ARMS cast would be an amazing addition to the roster. But which one specifically? Well, as the face of the franchise, Springman seems to be the most obvious inclusion. But since this is a video about what I want, I would love if they offered at least another character as a skin, like Ribbon Girl. And I think that, like the Inkling, they could feel truly unique even among the already eclectic Smash Bros. Cast. Imagine being able to grab your opponent from across the arena. Whoa. Now besides new characters, they've got to bring back some fan favorites too. Yep, it's time to thaw the Ice Climbers. Especially since the 3DS is no longer a performance bottleneck. And hey, Wolfram Smash Bros. Brawl will be another pretty good inclusion. Okay, so we've covered potential new and returning characters, but there is one more type of character that every new Smash Bros. Needs. The WTF one. Not to be confused with the WFT one, who actually kind of was a WTF character herself. But what I'm getting at is that every new game in the series not only needs a character that most people wouldn't see coming, but one that many people may not even know or remember. So in this case, Wii Fit Trainer doesn't quite fit. So for instance, in Smash Bros. Melee, that was Mr. Game & Watch. Whereas for Brawl, it was Rob and arguably Pit. And then in Smash Bros. 4, that honor went to Duck Hunt. So who could this character be in Smash Bros. Switch? Well, while I know most everyone, including me, would love to see King K. Rool, I don't think it quite fits the bill here. So I have one more option that's even more obscure than all the others combined, even if that barely makes sense. Yeah, you probably know where I'm going with this. I want the truck from Stunt Race FX. It is the exact wacky off-the-wall choice that will be a perfect fit for Smash Bros. Especially because, as a car, it would be a truly unique character type for this game. Even Sega Saturn's Fighters Mega Mix had a fighting car, so Smash Bros. In a sense is long overdue. Super Smash Bros. Controls are tight, fast, and super responsive. Unless you're playing online, where they're often delayed, imprecise, and extremely aggravating. And that's even when it's not a complete slideshow. And not only do I want Nintendo to fix this, they need to. Especially given that you'll soon have to pay to play online at all. And the way it works in Smash Bros. Wii U isn't going to cut it. Particularly because Super Smash Bros. Is primarily about playing with 4 players. Which is where the online problems are at their absolute worst. You see, because of how Smash Bros Online works, the connection for everyone is only as strong as the weakest link. So even if only one person out of 4 has a bad connection, everyone's going to be punished equally. And it's for that reason that playing one-on-one online is generally the superior way to play, even if it's still generally far from perfect. But for whatever reason, Nintendo unknowingly locked this option behind the 4 Glory mode in Super Smash Bros Wii U and 3DS, which is not only far more limited with its lack of stage variety and no items, but it's also antithetical to Smash Bros' more casual appeal for a lot of people. So yeah, I don't get why there wasn't a for fun option either. Now obviously I'm just a dumb YouTuber and not a network programmer, so I couldn't tell you exactly how Nintendo can fix this. But what I do know is that other fighting games have handled it much better. So whether Smash Bros needs better matchmaking, or perhaps a mandatory network test to ensure a stable connection before allowing people online, something needs to be done. I don't know, I'm just really afraid that the Switch's sometimes spotty Wi-Fi could make a bad situation even worse. So in summary, Nintendo, please improve the online connections and allow for one-on-one gameplay in for fun mode, because I just can't put up with Smash Bros Online as is anymore.
Sudden death!
Super Smash Bros Wii U is a UI disaster. Almost nothing is where you'd expect it to be, and it doesn't help that trying to find the things you're looking for involves digging through menus, within menus, within menus. Training mode, for instance, is inexplicably tucked 3 menus deep in the solo section of Games and More, which incidentally is the least useful title for a menu ever. Games and More? Doesn't that cover practically everything? This entire section is a hodgepodge of barely connected modes that each have their own submenus, along with the options screen for whatever reason. Shouldn't that be on the main menu? And speaking of the main menu, what the hell is Smash Tour doing here? As a board game, it's literally the one thing here that deserves to be in Games and More. Heck, even the least egregious option, being Smash, is more complicated than it needs to be. Because once you click on it, it takes us to a second screen that gives the exact same Smash option again, but this time along with 2 others, which are both just slight variants on the same thing. There's really no reason why the other 2 options couldn't just be merged into the character selection screen, or maybe even given tiny shortcuts on the main menu next to the main Smash icon. I could go on and on, because the entire thing is a mess of loosely connected ideas that makes navigating it unnecessarily frustrating. Come on Nintendo, you can do better. In fact, you already have in literally every other Smash Bros. Game. There is nothing more annoying than going to a friend's house to play Smash Bros. Only to find that you can't play as your favorite character because your friend hasn't taken the time to unlock them yet. Okay, look, I get it. Unlocking characters used to be fun. Back when they were actually surprising, like 20 years ago. But those days are long behind us, because these days, the entire roster is either blown out pre-release or very shortly thereafter. No one wants to sit there grinding through hundreds of one-stock matches for hours on end just to unlock their favorite character. So please Nintendo, I beg you, put this practice to bed, and save the unlockables for things that matter less. Like custom moves. Just kidding, those should definitely be unlocked too. If they have to return at all, that is. Okay, so Subspace Emissary and Super Smash Bros. Brawl was kind of a hot mess. But I'll be damned if it wasn't ambitious. Because the idea of it being an epic single-player campaign featuring dozens of Nintendo characters with an actual, albeit incomprehensible story, is incredibly awesome. It's practically Nintendo's version of the Avengers. Especially because a big part of the Avengers' appeal isn't just that these famous characters all appear together, it's more in how they interact with each other, which is an element even the Smash Bros. Series largely ignored until Subspace Emissary. Because in an ordinary Smash Bros. Match, the interactions are entirely surface level, in that every character interacts with any other in the exact same ways. There's nothing special about Mario punching DK in the face versus Peach or Link. They just don't care. And that's the exact void that Subspace Emissary helped fill. It gave us a glimpse of how these various characters react and interact with each other, which is something we almost never get to see. The story-based cutscenes, for as nonsensical as they could be, were also something truly special. Now, granted, the gameplay sequences that connected them weren't nearly as inspired, with generic environments and unmemorable enemies. But hey, it's the thought that counts, right? Which is why that, despite how flawed Subspace Emissary could be, Super Smash Bros. 3DS and Wii U still felt like they were missing something big by ignoring it completely. Both games lack the punch of a big single-player adventure that the series had gradually been building with each installment. So yeah, I think it's time to bring back Subspace Emissary, or at least something similarly ambitious. Just, you know, a little bit better this time. Smash Run is a really good idea. It's just the execution of it that wasn't. I know the idea can work because Sakurai made it work before in Kirby Air Ride City Trial Mode, where the objective was basically the same. Run around to collect as many skill upgrades as possible before competing in a random battle once time expires, that put your acquired skills to the test. But what made City Trial great was that you're competing in the same world for the same resources as everyone else. Unlike in Smash Run, where everyone was locked to their own instanced version of the world, meaning you never saw or interacted with your opponents until the final challenge, if even then. It's just bizarre that a competitive mode in a game all about smashing other players has almost none of it. And this is only made worse by how limp some of those final challenges can be, like racing to the top of a series of ramps. What Smash Run should be is an intense battle for limited resources, a la PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. But instead, it's basically the Smash Bros version of playing competitive solitaire. Is that even a thing? So here's how I would fix it. 1. Put everyone in the same world, where they can smash each other and compete for resources. 2. There should be both handheld and docked versions of this mode, where if you're playing on the TV, instead of split screen, I think it'd be more fun if everyone played on a single map, just resized to fit on the screen. And 3. Better endgame challenges and more of them in each round. So instead of having a single match that might be over within a minute or even less, there should be 2 or 3 different ones. That way players don't get completely screwed over by random chance if a particular challenge is selected that doesn't complement the exact skills that they collected. So yeah, Nintendo could totally make Smash Run work. Now Smash Tour on the other hand, yeah, that one's beyond help. Except for one thing. Even though Smash Tour and Super Smash Bros Wii U was a heaping garbage fire, it did touch on one amazing feature without even realizing it. And that was how, in the final match, each of your stocks, or lives, were tied to a different fighter. So once one got knocked out, you would then play as an entirely different character that was next in line. And so on and so forth until you either won the battle or ran out of stocks. And that idea of being able to play as multiple characters in the same match could be an incredible addition to Smash Bros, with how different character sets might be better or worse against another. So for example, at the start of a match, instead of choosing just one character for a stock battle, you could choose multiple different ones until you match a set stock amount, at which point you would then cycle through those characters in that order during the actual match. And building off of this, I would love if Super Smash Bros. Finally added a tag team mode, where you select a pair of fighters that can swap in and out of battle at will. A little bit like how the Pokemon trainer worked in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Just, you know, with every character. Heck, they could even make this a cooperative team-based game where you and a friend tag in and out. I think any of this would add an extremely interesting new wrinkle to the gameplay. For most of the Smash Bros. Series, there have only been 3 rule types for standard matches: time, stock, and coin. And you know what? I think it's about time they stock up on a few more, even if it costs Nintendo a few more coins. Yeah, I really had no better way to shoehorn that one in there. So here are a couple of ideas. Like, how about the addition of a King of the Hill type mode where you have to fight to keep your opponents away? It could even change locations, which could give these larger stages a greater purpose. Heck, why not repurpose a Smash Ball into a roaming hill that you have to defend as it moves around? I think that'd be pretty cool. And speaking of the Smash Ball, I think it's a bit of a shame that the final smashes are locked only to it. Especially with how many people turn off items entirely and never get to see final smashes in play. So what about an entire mode built around final smashes instead? Where instead of breaking open a Smash Ball for one, you now have to fill a special meter by landing attacks or taking damage. It could certainly breathe new life into an element that many players will never see. So that's just a couple of ideas for new rules. But I would love to see Nintendo get even more creative than that. Super Smash Bros. Have been around for a long time, and parts of it are starting to feel a little creaky. Take Mario for instance, who still plays largely the same now as he did in the first Super Smash Bros. Game 20 years ago. The only major updates to his moveset since have been FLUDD from 2001 Super Mario Sunshine, and the cape from Super Mario World, which of course precedes even Super Mario 64. Yeah, Mario may be older than dirt, but that doesn't mean he has to feel like it, especially with how many newer games there are to draw on. So instead of his super jump punch recovery, why not replace it with a Luma-assisted spin jump from Super Mario Galaxy? And instead of the cape, why not toss Cappy instead? Heck, they can even go all out here with Cappy if they wanted to, like being able to use him as a platform to jump from, or maybe even allowing you to briefly capture opponents to take control of them. That would certainly switch things up. And although I do kinda love how they turned Luigi into a creepy weirdo, it also doesn't really fit his character at all. Especially these days, where there's no actual material to draw upon, like with the Luigi's Mansion games. So for instance, why not elevate the Poltergust from mere Final Smash status and make it a core part of his moveset, allowing him to suck up people with 360 degrees of accuracy. Or maybe he could even ride it around like EGAD himself does in the Mario and Luigi games. Wouldn't that be the perfect replacement for Luigi's green missile? And then there's Ganondorf, who still doesn't even use his sword. Why? Although he actually did have a move that uses sword as a custom move in Smash Bros Wii U and 3DS. So maybe some of those could replace some otherwise old and stale moves as part of their primary moveset? I would love to see this for Palutena, where most of her custom moves are far more interesting than her standard set. Now besides characters, there are also stages. But since Smash Bros games tend to come out relatively early in the system's lifespan, these stages are generally based on the previous generation of games, which generally leaves the entire package feeling a bit dated not too long after release. But to be fair, this did start to change with Smash Bros Wii U, which not only featured several stages from games on that same platform, such as Gamer from Game & Wario and Windy Hill Zone from Sonic Lost World, but it even went the extra mile and included a stage from a game that hadn't even yet been released, in the form of Yoshi's Woolly World. I love that, and I really want to see more current stages like that in Super Smash Bros. Switch. And among them, I want to see a New Donk City stage, where you can bounce off buildings and passing taxis. And maybe there could be a segment where you're trying to escape a T-Rex that's hot in your tail. Or hey, to take it a step farther, maybe you could actually ride the Odyssey between different stages from the game. Wouldn't that truly capture that game's sense of adventure? And speaking of adventure, I also want to see a touring type stage that explores the Hyrule from Breath of the Wild. I think that could be amazing with so many fantastic vistas to look at and land on and battle within. Oh, that could be fantastic. Oh, and I can only imagine how wonderfully creative a stage based on Labo could be, with it changing constantly as the cardboard's folded into different shapes. Or maybe you could just have the giant robot attacking you from the background. Wait a second, could the Labo robot be the WTF, or rather the WFT character of this game? Oh man. And there you have it, the 10 things I want to see in Super Smash Bros. For the Switch, even if it's like way more if you itemize it. I really do think that even if Smash Bros. Switch is largely a deluxe version, there is still a lot Nintendo could do here to make a great game even greater. But what do you think about my ideas? Do you like them? Could they make for a smashing time? And what would you like to see? Let us know by posting in the comments below. And with that, thanks for watching, and make sure to click that subscribe button for more on Super Smash Bros. Switch and all things Nintendo too.